This is about as barren and desolate as it gets. You don't want to be walking around here too long. That's why Ford sent us this to drive. So stay tuned. This is the 2017 Ford F-250. It has an advertised starting price of around $32,000 if you get the base V8 engine and two-wheel drive, but this one was loaded up with a bit more goodies. For starters, it's the SuperDuty. It has the KingRanch package, the Power Stroke Turbo Diesel, four-wheel drive with the off-road package. Rather than read off all of the options, I'll just show you on the screen. If there's anything that captures your attention on this price sticker, you can just freeze it. In case you weren't adding up the options, here you go, $18,740 worth. And cutting to the chase, well, you see it there, $77,390. What a deal. The base engine is a 6.2 liter gasoline V8, putting out 385 horsepower, 430 foot-pounds of torque, rated at 12 to 18 miles per gallon, which is not what we're seeing here. Somewhere under all of this plumbing is a 6.7 liter Power Stroke Turbo V8, putting out 440 horsepower and a whopping 925 foot-pounds of torque at a low 1800 RPM, also hooked to a 6-speed automatic. The EPA doesn't rate fuel economy on big rigs like this. That's why you're watching my video, because we're going to rack up a lot of miles and do a lot of fuel economy tests. That's coming up. This is our first official fuel economy reading. 60 miles in heavy city traffic, 12.9 mpg. This is our first highway mileage test. 61 miles at 75 miles per hour with the cruise control, 17.2 mpg. We'll be doing some more driving to see if we can do better. According to the Ford website, an F-250 can tow up to 21,000 pounds on a hitch or 32,500 on a gooseneck. I don't tow anything, so we'll just have to take their word for it. As you are probably already aware, Ford is making their beds and bodies out of aluminum, in this case saving 350 pounds over the previous model, yet they claim the whole structure is 24 times stiffer. Sounds good to me. Here's the question of the day: how fragile are aluminum beds? Well, we've seen that TV commercial where they dump 30 tons of bricks in the steel Chevy bed, isn't scratched, and they dump the same thing in the Ford aluminum bed, it gets totally trashed. Look, that commercial's silly. No one's going to own a truck hauling anything without a bed liner. If you have a bed liner in this aluminum bed, you're pretty well covered. So the whole subject is kind of moot. Besides, if you're in the business of dumping tons of cinder blocks in a truck, you're probably not going to be using an F-250 anyway. I'm going to be hauling a lot of stuff in this bed. We'll see how it holds up, although I don't think I'm really worried. We'll be doing some off-roading in this. Stay tuned for more. Before we go any further, we're going to do what I do with all vehicles, take the headlights out and see how they perform, and we're going to do that right now. It's dark enough, so let's check out these headlights and see how they perform. Here we have the low beams on a wall 100 feet away, more than adequate light. Here are the high beams, definitely adequate light, very bright. Here we have the high beams on a building 300 feet away, plenty of light. Go to low beam, again, no complaints, more than adequate for city or highway driving, or backcountry roads. As a rule, I despise running boards, but these are pretty good because they go down to get in, go back up after you get in. Pretty good idea. The interior has some good features. We got a nice gauge cluster display. Large buttons on the steering wheel. Handy when wearing gloves. A very simple to use climate control system. Easy to use entertainment system. A simple knob for two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, or four-wheel drive low. Lots of fuel economy information, as well as off-road status gauges. I did have two complaints about the cabin. We'll start with number one, this glove box. I mean, this box is way too small for a truck this big. It's almost ludicrous. Even the little Kia Soul I had last week was 3 times larger. Come on, Ford, you can't be serious. We do get an additional glove box with even less room. Fortunately, we get a super large console in between the seats that makes up for that. So I won't complain too much. The KingRanch package gives us tons and tons of leather all over the interior. We also get it on the rear seats that do fold up for storage. Number two, and actually my biggest gripe, the gas pedal and brake pedal are located too far away from each other. I guess Ford thinks that everyone who drives an F-250 has a size 16 shoe, but for us normal people, especially petite females, the distance is just too great. In a stop-and-go driving, you just can't move your foot back and forth. You have to lift up your whole leg. It's very annoying. Now there's a way to solve this. I'll show you in a minute. In this case, we did get a switch that allows you to raise or lower the pedals depending on your height. Problem is, it moves both pedals at once, so you still have that space in between the brake and the gas that needs to be solved. The long distance between the brake and gas pedals is usually a problem I get with all of the GMC and Chevy trucks. Kind of odd Ford wants to do this too, but hey, what can I tell you? To solve the distance between the brake and gas pedal problem, all you need is a rubber band and a door stop. And there you go, problem solved. Last time I showed this on a Chevy truck video, I got some hate mail from some truckers. Tell me this is totally ridiculous, but hey, it works. What can I tell you? You're probably watching this video to see what type of real-world fuel economy I'm going to get. We're going to accommodate you by taking 2 highway trips. I can honestly say this is one of the best highway vehicles I've ever driven. It's very smooth, extremely quiet, and with this turbo diesel, very powerful with lots of passing power. If I had to drive from Los Angeles to New York on a daily basis, this would be my first pick. We're coming up on the 6,000 feet elevation level, and I can tell you the pulling ability of this diesel engine is just awesome. It doesn't matter how steep the grade is, it just pulls no problem, and it's not even working hard. I'm very impressed. Okay, extended highway trip number 1. We did 109 miles, got 14.7 mpg. But I must point out, we were climbing uphill all the way from 1,500 feet to 6,000 feet and doing a lot of passing on steep grades. So this is going to be the worst we're going to get. We do have a return trip going downhill from 6,000 feet back to the 1,500 foot level. We'll add up that mileage and divide by 2 and see what the real figure comes out to be overall. Here's the question of the day. How does the F-250 perform off-road? Well, it does have several advantages. For starters, you have a lot of ground clearance. I haven't measured it, but as you can see, there's plenty here. Then you have the factory off-road four-wheel drive system. And the massive torque of this turbo diesel certainly helps. Although the base gasoline engine pulls pretty well too. But there are a few disadvantages. For example, this air dam does limit ground clearance in the front. If you're doing a lot of off-roading, you might want to see about removing it. And keep in mind, we have a very stiff rear suspension here, designed for hauling gear and towing. You take this off-road with the light bed, every rock and hole it hits is going to really pound the vehicle pretty hard, and you. Now, if you're going off-road and have several thousand pounds of gear in the bed, the suspension will smooth out very nice. But on an empty bed, it's pretty treacherous on these back forest roads. Just a word of warning, the Ford F-250 in two-wheel drive is for the street. It is not for off-roading like this. In two-wheel drive, there simply isn't enough weight on the rear end of this truck to get any real traction, especially with this aluminum body. If you're driving on soft dirt or sand, you're going to get stuck. If you're going to purchase a Ford F-250 and you plan on taking it on back roads like this, don't be cheap. Order the four-wheel drive system. This is what you call desolate living, 100 miles from the nearest city. And the only house in the neighborhood's been here 100 years or more. The town of Willaha, population 1, just me. I see lunch out there. Good cooking there. Hey, you ever heard of Diesel before? Don't like that, huh? If you do a lot of driving on ranch land, you probably run across narrow gates like this, which is why it's very handy to have something called retractable mirrors. Otherwise, you're not going to fit through. Here you go, folks, my home away from home. Just needs a little fixing up, you know, some nails and a paint job. The last tenant here wasn't so lucky. The only thing worse than fitting this big monster into a tight parking space is fitting it in a car wash. I don't think I'm going to get out of here. This is our second long-term fuel economy trip. We're dropping from the 6,000 feet elevation we came to, going down to the original 1,500 feet elevation we started at. Here's our last fuel economy figure. 19.1 going downhill on the return trip. 14.7 going uphill on the original trip. Added up, divide by 2, gives us a 17 mpg average. So if you take the fuel economy of 13 mpg I got in the city, and the 17 to 17.5 I got on the freeway, it comes out to an average of approximately 15 mpg overall. That's pretty close to what the 6.2 liter gasoline engine gets. The main difference is, if you want more power with the diesel, you got to pay more. It's that simple. As far as the reliability goes, there are diesel fans who are convinced that diesel engines last more than gasoline engines. Not necessarily true. Yes, the big rigs we see on the freeway hauling the 20-ton loads do last a long time, but that's because the engines are detuned from the ground up to run a long time. The diesel engines in these consumer trucks are anything but detuned. Sure, you might go 250,000 miles, but you can do that on a gasoline engine if you take care of it. Overall, I don't really see any difference as far as long-term reliability between a diesel and gasoline and a standard pickup truck. But I'm not going to get into that debate. That's another video. What's not debatable is the fact that this is one of the best vehicles in the Ford inventory and a very nice truck. Yes, the price of 77 grand was a bit high, but if you cut down on options, you can get it for a lot less, especially if you go to the gasoline-powered engine. If you're looking for a large heavy-duty truck for hauling lots of people and gear, this is definitely worth a look. A very nice rig. We also tested a Ford F-150 with the 2.7 liter EcoBoost. If you'd like to see that review, just click on the link here.